We're going to build this memory game here, and we can see here is 8 different cards to begin with, and once you click on them, you'll see it rotates, and you can see the back value, and you're supposed to try to match the values. And every time you make a move, your score increments, and you have to try to beat the level with a certain amount of moves. And you see once we finish it, we can go to the next level. And if we fail to complete the level in the specified amount of moves, we'll have to redo the level. So we'll just use up our moves here. And here we go. We can see that I was over by 11 moves, and we get try again. So we can hit try again, and we restart. So for this project, we'll use Vite, React, TypeScript, and TailwindCSS. Let's run npm create Vite at latest, and then the name of the directory. So we're just going to have it called memory game, and then the template. So we will use the React TypeScript template. And once that completes, you can run these commands here. cd into the directory you created. You can run npm install. And we won't run npm run dev right away. We will add Tailwind to the project as well. So to do that, you can go to the TailwindCSS.com to get the instructions. So we'll copy this command here. And so while that's running, we can copy the next command. And then let's copy this here. We'll paste that into our Tailwind config.js. So you can open up your editor here. Let's open up the Tailwind config file and paste that in like so. And then let's modify our index CSS file to have these contents like that. So I'm just going to select everything and paste over it. I don't want what was there before. And now we can run npm run dev. So we'll go ahead and run that now. So we can open up this localhost 5173. Okay, and it should be empty now. So let's open up our editor again. In our app tsx component, let's go ahead and remove everything in here. So the React logo, the Vite logo, we won't need an app CSS. We'll delete that. And we'll delete this as well. And in here, we'll just return a div for now that says memory game. And over here, we'll just change this to be React. For now, let's delete this assets directory, also the public one. So I think we should be good here. Let's create a types directory or types file where we're going to add some shared types here. And in here, we'll just export one type, which is the GameCard. And this will have a value, which is going to be a number. And then an ID, which will also be, actually we'll make it a string. This will be so we can uniquely identify it. And then is matched. This is for if the card has been matched already. So that should be all we need for the types here. So let's go and create another file that we will call just card.tsx. And this will be a component that we use to render each of the game cards. So let's create the type for this component for the props first. So we'll do card props, and this will need 4 things. So one is the card itself, which will be of type GameCard, and then is flipped. This will be a Boolean. So this is different than the is matched. So once it's matched, it's always flipped over. But as the user is playing, when they click on a card before it's matched, that's this kind of tentative is flipped state. And then is disabled. So we'll want to have conditions for disabling it. Will be a Boolean. And then on flip. And this will be a callback that will take a game card, which will be of type GameCard, and it will return nothing. So we'll just do void. And then let's actually create the component. So here we'll destructure all those, and we'll add the type so we can get IntelliSense to help us destructure them. We will right away create a callback that we can assign to our card, which will be handle click. It won't take any parameters, and it will just call the onFlip component with the card itself. And we'll add our dependencies just like that. And then to see if the card is flipped, we'll create a variable here, and it's going to be either if the card is matched or if it's flipped. And what we'll want to do next is actually return something. So here we'll return a button since it'll be clickable, and we'll give it a class name. So we'll make it a flex container and justify everything in the center. We'll give it a border of 2 pixels, and we'll make it purple at 950. And then we'll give it some padding to make it a little bit bigger, margin, have it some space around it, and then a width of, we'll do 20%. So that's 1 divided by 5. And then what we'll actually want to do is if it's flipped, make it green, and if it's not flipped, we'll make it red. So we'll surround all this with some quotes, or the curly braces, and then change these double quotes to the backticks. And then in here, we'll say if the card is flipped, we will do BG green 200. Otherwise, if it's not flipped, we'll do BG red 200, like so. And then this button will be disabled if the card is flipped over already, or if the prop is disabled. And then on click, we'll pass in that callback we created. And then here, inside of the button, we'll have this if card is flipped, then we show the card.value. Otherwise, we'll just show a question mark. And looks like we forgot to import React here. There we go. So that should be it for our card component. And now let's implement the app component, which is kind of what makes the whole thing happen. So the first thing we'll do is create a function that can shuffle an array. So, well, actually first let's create a function that will generate all the game cards, and then we'll generate the function to shuffle them. So we'll call this create game cards, and this will take one parameter that we'll call unique cards, which will be of type number, and it will return an array of game cards. And so we'll just create an empty array to start with. And then we'll do a for loop. So we'll let the value, we'll start it at 0, and then we'll continue while it's less than or equal to that unique cards that we're going for, and then increment value by 1 every time. And we will push onto the game cards a card with the same value. Is matched will always be false to begin with, and then the ID here, we'll just do value. We'll do some backticks here. Value, and we'll do -1 for this, and then we'll copy this, and then for this part we'll do -2. So these just have to be unique between it. And then if we return this every time, it would always be in the same order, and the game wouldn't be very interesting. So let's create a function to shuffle the array. So we'll just preemptively reference it here, and then we'll implement it up here. So shuffle array, and this will be a generic function. I actually use this in a lot of my other projects, but we'll reference that T here, and it will take an array, which is of type array T. So it doesn't matter if it's an array of numbers or objects, whatever it is, and it'll return an array of the same type. And then what we'll do is we'll start at the end of the array. Doesn't matter, we could have started at the beginning as well, but we'll start at the end. We'll continue until we get back to the beginning, and subtract 1 from I every time. And what we want to do is swap the current position with another random position in the array. So to get another random position, we'll just call it J. We'll do math.floor to make sure we're not getting any decimals. And then we'll do math.random. And then we'll multiply that by I plus 1. And then to swap this, we could introduce another variable where we would assign I to T, and then we would T for like temporary, and then we would assign J to I, and then move the temporary variable to J. Or we can kind of in a clever way do it in one operation. So we'll say array I and array J, like so. It's going to be equal to, and we'll just have the same thing as we had in this on this side, but inversed. So we will copy this, and over here we'll paste it, and then this will be an I, and this will be a J. And then we can return that array. So this will shuffle the array for us. And next, what we can do is define the levels. So we'll have a type level, which will have just 2 things on it, which is the card count, and this will be a number. Then we'll also have the max score, which is the most attempts you can make before it's considered a failure. And then we'll define some levels here. So you could define these however you want. I find just taking the card count and multiplying it by 2 and then adding 2 makes it sufficiently challenging for at least the first 2 levels. So here, this would be 8. And we'll do this for all of, we'll just go up to 7. And then here, this would be 10. this would be 12, this would be 14, and this would be 16. So then in the app, we'll want to store what level the user is currently on. And they'll start at level 0. And then we'll also want to get some game cards that we store in state as well. And by default, what this will be is we'll call that create game cards function with level 0's card count. So levels 0 and we'll reference the card count like so. And then we'll also want to store which cards are currently flipped over that are not matched yet, so that whichever ones the user is trying to match. So flipped cards, and this will be an array of game cards like so. And let's also keep track of how many attempts they've made, so that's their score. So we'll call it score rather. And this will start at 0 as well. And then also we want to know if the user is done. So this can be just a simple computation. We do game cards.every. If every single one of the game cards is matched, then we know that the user is done. And so for this next part, whenever the level changes, what we'll want to do is update the game cards and the score. So we'll implement that right away. So there's our level in the dependency array. And we'll check if there is a next level to make sure if they reach the end, we don't try to show them the wrong stuff. So we'll do level config is equal to levels and then this. And then so if they are done, if there's no level config, we'll just set the game cards to be an empty array. And we'll have a special return to just say you win if they reach the end. And then otherwise, if there is another level, what we'll do is we'll set the game cards to be some new game cards for whatever that level card count is. And then we'll reset their attempts or their score back to 0. And so what we need now is a function that will be called when the user clicks on a card. So we'll do handle card flip, and this will be that function that we pass to our card component. And this will take a game card and we'll implement this here. So put an empty array there for now. If there's no flipped cards yet, so this is the first card they're flipping over, we'll just add it to that array, and that's all we have to do for now. So we'll do set flipped cards. It'll be an array with just this one card in there, and then we can return out. Otherwise, if it's not equal to exactly 1, that shouldn't happen, but we'll just prevent it from happening anyway from any unexpected bugs in here. So we'll do flipped cards dot length. If it's not equal to 1, we'll just return out here. And so now we have, for the rest of this, we have one flipped card, and we'll need to check if it matches. So one thing we can do right away is increment the score by just returning whatever it was previously, adding 1 to it. And then what we'll want to do next is check if the flipped card matches the first one that they had flipped. So we can reference the first card and its value and check if it's equal to the one that was passed in to this value. So if it was, what we'll need to do is set both of these cards to be matched in the game cards. So we'll do set game cards and we'll do a callback here, the previous game cards. And what we'll return is we'll map over this and like so. And we'll have a previous game card here, singular. And if the game card is matching the current one, so what we can do here is GameCard.id and whatever the first card was, .id. If the current card that we're iterating over is one of those cards, what we can do is return whatever it was previously, so previous game card, and then we'll just say is matched is true now. And then if it's not, we'll just return that previous game card. So this will set both of them to be to is matched true. And then afterwards we'll set the flipped cards to an empty array. And otherwise, if it's not matching, what we'll want to do is let's add on this current card to the flipped cards. So we'll just return previous and we'll concat this current game card to it. And then let's set a timeout for 1 second so the user can look at the cards for 1 second before they flip back. So we'll have a timeout ID. And after the time passes, we'll just set flip cards to an empty array. And it will be here 1000 milliseconds, so 1 second. And then we'll return a cleanup function from this. Actually, we don't need a cleanup function. This is a use callback, so we can get rid of that and this. So there we go. So if they select the wrong card, we'll add it to the flipped cards, and then we will show it for 1 second and flip them back after 1000 milliseconds. And then in this here, we have to add flipped cards. Yeah, so I think that should be it for this function. We can implement the next one, which is handle restart. So if the user fails the level, they'll have the opportunity to restart. And all this one will do is set the game cards to be a new deck. So we'll do level, and then the card count. And then we'll also set the score to be 0. And this will change whenever the level changes. And then one more function to implement is going to the next level. So handle next level. This one will set the level to be whatever it was previously plus 1. Like so. This one, just an empty dependency array. And then here, before we render out the game, we'll do a quick check if there's no more levels. So if the level has gone beyond the ones we defined, we'll just return an H1 that says you win. You can make this be more exciting or developed out, but we'll just leave it like that for now. And then in here, let's actually just get rid of this here. We'll create a div with a class name. It'll be flex. We'll do a flex column. We'll put the items in the center and do margin Y auto. And we'll have the text centered as well. Then in here, we'll do an H1 that says memory game. We'll make it 3 extra large. Memory game. And then we'll create a div to wrap all the cards in. So this one will also be flex. We'll do flex wrap so that the cards can wrap around instead of just being in one long line. Justify center. And in here, we'll iterate over the game cards. And we'll map game card. So what we'll want to do here is render that card component that we created. We'll give it a key of that ID that we assigned it. And then for the props, we'll do card is equal to the game card itself. Is flipped. So this is going to be that tentative state, not if it's matched already, but if the user is flipping it over. So here we can just say flipped cards dot sum and check if there's a flipped card that matches this ID. So we can do flipped card dot ID is equal to game card dot ID. And then it's going to be disabled while there are 2 flipped cards. So for that 1 second when we're letting the user look at the 2 cards that didn't match. So flipped cards dot length is equal to 2. And then on flip, this will be our handle card flip function that we implemented earlier. So that should be it for the cards. So after this, below it, we can render another div. And this part we'll just make rather plain. We'll have a p tag here that will show the user their current level. And we'll add 1 just so it starts at level 1 instead of level 0. We'll also show their score. So score like so. And then here, if the user is not done, what we will do is show the remaining moves that they have. So remaining moves. And here we need to reference the max score for the current level. So like this, minus whatever their current score is. Otherwise, if the user is done, we want to check if their score was less than or equal to their max score for the level. So if it was, what we will do is return a fragment here and say nice work. And then we'll give them a button to go to the next level. So make it have some padding. Make it green 600. We'll make the text white so you can actually see it on the green background and make it a bit bigger. And then on click, this will be that handle next level function. There we go. And otherwise, they did not complete the level. in time, so they did too many moves, we can return another fragment here and say how many moves they were over by. So you were over by, we'll do some math here, so attempt or score minus levels, level dot max score. And then we'll give a button to retry. So we'll copy this button and paste it in here and modify it. So instead of it being, oh, whoops, I did gray on this one. This should have been green. And then this one, instead of being gray, we'll have it be red 600. And it'll be the handle restart function. And we'll say try again. Save this, let it format. So let's see how it looks. Perfect. So for this next part, what we'll do is add some 3D animation to these cards that they flip over when you click on them. First thing we'll do is in this button here, we no longer need this to be a flex container and justify center. We can change this to be relative. And in here we'll also add some transition classes. So transition transform. We'll do a duration of 500. And we'll also do a transform. And then in here, we'll have the border remain the same with the size. And then for the is card flipped, instead of adding this background, what we'll do is we'll add a class that we'll define in a moment. So here, if it's flipped, we'll add a flipped class, and otherwise we will add nothing. So that should be it for that button. We'll also want to add a style here of the transform style. And we'll do preserve 3D on it. And then in here, we're going to have two divs, one for the front and one for the back of the card. So we'll define it like so. We'll also add a style on this, and we'll implement this all in a second. So this is the front with just a question mark. And then for this class name, we're going to position it with the absolute position. We'll have it take up the full width and the full height. And this one, we'll have it flex, justify center, and item center to keep everything in the middle. And then we'll do left 0 and top 0. And then since this is the back of the card, this is where we'll have that red background. And then for the style, we'll want to do backface visibility of hidden to make sure that you can't see the opposite side of the card when viewing this one. And then we'll copy this and paste it and modify it. So instead of this side being red, we'll have it be green. And we'll also want to rotate this one by 180 degrees by default so that you can't see it. So rotate Y 180 degrees. And then we'll show the card.value on it. So we can delete that. And then let's implement this flipped class that we referenced over here. So let's go into index CSS. We'll create a flipped class. And what we'll want to do for this one is just rotate it by 180 degrees. So transform, and we have this one here, and 180 degrees. That should be all we need. So if we come here and refresh, we click on it, we get this nice flip animation. So that's it for this one.